Greetings. This is Anthony Muhammad with National Network View, the al-Asr Report, current events with commentary on the time and what must be done. Today, we have a very special discussion with Sister Charlene Muhammad, who is the Final Call newspaper national correspondent, creator of Liberated Sisters podcast and liberatedSisters.com. She is also an author of a book called Pumps on the Ground, Trench Work and Analysis of Police and Street Violence. We would like to bring her on now. How are you doing, Sister Charlene?
I'm doing great. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Anthony. Thank you for
Alaikum
having
salam.
me. How are
No
you?
problem. I'm doing very well, and we thank you for joining us to help spread some knowledge to the people.
Great.
I would first, just like to start off with having you explain a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your passion as well.
All right. Thank you. So obviously, I'm a follower of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, leading me to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm a wife, a mother of two, and I like to skate.
Ah,
And I just love to spread the news and the good word out of the Final Call newspaper to not only our people, but to humanity. I love serving as a student under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in that way.
yes, ma'am. Wow, beautiful answer. We would like to really just dive straight into today's discussion, and just to bring up, the final call cover for this week, or rather last week, was why we can't trust you and your vaccine.
Mhm.
With people having so many questions about these vaccines,
Yeah.
please share with people what they may find in this new issue of the final call that they can get solutions from and advice to properly treat themselves for COVID-19.
Thank you, brother. Um, in the current issue of the final call, which is, I think, we had been writing about COVID-19, but this is a very pointed issue, part three, if you will. Again, we had been covering COVID all along, but if you will, coming out of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's message to humanity, the criterion, we are continuing to write about the distrust of not just Blacks, but the American people, from scientists, epidemiologists, doctors across the board to lay people regarding the government's response to the vaccine or the disease, rather, but also the race for the vaccine. So in this current edition, you will see where Brother Naba Muhammad, our editor-in-chief, as well as Brother Michael Z. Muhammad, our writer out of Philadelphia, they talk about the historic mistreatment, the medical malpractice, and the egregious work that had been done on and through Black bodies, and why we, in particular, Blacks and the indigenous, distrust the U.S. medical system. And also, in one of the articles which I was blessed to write, we hear more about the battle that's taking place, the political concerns, the Trump administration is at odds with the Centers for Disease Control, the White House Task
Mm,
Force, Dr. Anthony Fauci. There's a massive outreach by the National Institutes of Health and the government to get Blacks into the clinical trials. And our
mhm,
people of color, quote unquote, are saying no. If there is a massive concern around safety and efficacy. And of course, you will see in this current issue our own student minister, Dr. Ava Muhammad, the national spokesperson for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who lays out problems that we're seeing in the clinical trials that have gone from phase one, some are in phase three, and there's a lot of problems with this. But if I could call people to the minister's message or his divine instruction and guidance, don't take their vaccines. Well, we're seeing more and more every day. Why? He says that, but he doesn't say that, as Minister Ava points out, in a vacuum. He says, don't take them. He points to the mistrust and the mistreatment and the historical as well as modern day issues that we can prove have ill affected us. But he also said, number two, called together our Black scientists, our doctors, our epidemiologists, our biologists, our virologists to create something better for ourselves, as well as he wants access for us to alpha interferon, the treatment that has been successful in Cuba. And he also said to end the embargo.
Yes, ma'am. I thank you for that elaborate response.
Don't ask me about the final call. I'm like,
That's what we want. That's what we try. That's what we want to hear, dear sister. We thank you for that response. And you sort of touched on some things that lead into this next question, which involves the declining economy, which seems to be the cause of this rush for the vaccines. It seems more of a business move than a health issue, since it usually takes 10 years to develop such a vaccine on such a mass scale. And since the people who have already been on the trials for these vaccines have been negatively affected, what do you suggest people do, or the maneuvers that they should make to avoid the requirements for public access, like our public schools, grocery stores? How do we get around that niche if we decide to deny these vaccines and do for ourselves?
Brother, I have to come directly from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, for he is the divine guide for not just Blacks, but for the whole and also for humanity. He says, do not take them. So we wait on the leader for the response. And as Minister Ava, if I could point you to Minister Ava's, as well as the final call, consistent coverage on COVID, because we come directly out of the mind of the minister and directly out of the headlines and the news, which he gives us before we even get it on the national news or even local grassroots independent. This is where we get the lead from. And so Minister Ava, recently, I think it was August or late August, early September, but it's on NOI.org, The Law of God, Part 1 and Part 2. She expressly addressed people's concerns about what if we do not take this vaccine. Well, I would humbly say if the man of God has already told us not to take it, and we know that they are pushing us to do this, the solution is there. We must hear and obey. And it's frightening. As Minister Ava has said recently, we get that because people's livelihood, they feel, is at stake. They cannot, as you point out, or they're threatened with sending children to school. They're threatened with having to choose between being able to go to the doctor. Someone, Dr. Khadijah Lang, pointed out recently in an interview with me. She is part of the National Medical Association chapter here in Los Angeles, and she's a family medicine doctor. But Dr. Lang pointed out her clients, some people's concerns, and mentioned China as an example in terms of China having the mandate for one child. And so she said, Charlene, those children that they had, number 2, 3, 4, they became invisible. They could not get any treatment. However, again, we have the divine guide and the divine guidance, and we must not fear. And so I would like to direct everyone to Minister Ava's Law of God, Part 1 and 2, and also the messages of his national assistant, Student Minister Ishmael Muhammad, because they are continuing to guide us from the minister. But at the end of the day, I don't have any answers to that except to say, you can come where I'm going, and I'm going where the minister's taking us. And I'm not taking the vaccine. I'm waiting on him.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That is right. And just to sort of piggyback off of that answer, I would like just for you to elaborate on.
We're
Was
gonna
it?
count off of that.
That's why I apologize.
Myself. I'm just so nervous, brother. That was my
That is
cover up.
that is okay. You are doing very well with these answers. We thank you for joining us and giving what you know to the people. So, and just to go to the next question, it's more of your opinion on, or not your opinion. Is there any facts that you could really tell the people about historical incidences that may have happened that you would lay on them to steer their mind away from these vaccines and give people context of what could happen from taking these vaccines.
Yes, sir, brother. Thank you, brother Anthony. And if I could go a little historical and come all the way up to modern
Mhm.
times, and they can actually go to finalcall.com right now. And again, brother Naba and brother Michael lay out very well, point for point, some very clear examples. But of course, many people are able to cite Tuskegee, right? What happened in the U.S. syphilis study. There's a more formal name for that, but the Tuskegee experiment, as it is referred to, but it has
Mhm.
another name, where Black men were given syphilis and were not treated. When the treatment became available, they were denied that treatment. That's number one. Modern day, we see a nurse. I want to say Diane, but Diane, forgive me, Diane may not be her name, but Miss Wooten for sure. Miss Wooten for sure, a Black nurse that works in the immigration detention system as a nurse has reported. She's blown the whistle on being chastised for complaining, not just her, but coworkers complaining about
Mhm.
the lack of treatment, personal protective equipment for COVID-19. But in addition to that, if that weren't enough, Sister said that women were being given hysterectomies. Okay. They're
Mhm.
going in for treatment. They were given hysterectomies. And someone referred to this doctor, alleged she was the womb collector, but that's
Mhm.
one. Recently, that is happening now. She was demoted, and so she is blown the whistle. Prior to that, in North Carolina, we see in the 60s and beyond that Black women, not just women but men, sterilized. People are being paid for that right now today. Those are just a few small examples. I'm here in Los Angeles. In the height of the crack cocaine epidemic, you had a woman, a Caucasian so-called activist who professed concern for Black children, was paying crack, quote unquote, crack mothers to become sterilized. $200. What is that going to do? First
Wow.
of all, why would you do that? Second of all, that's enough to get another hit, right? So these are
Mhm.
just some of, and people knew about that. This wasn't her performing these sterilizations in her yard.
Mhm.
Someone medical had to do that. So there are so many different things. And of course, people point to smallpox in the blanket of our indigenous brothers and sisters. We can go on and on and on and on. Dr. Wesley Muhammad, student minister, the great scholar Dr. Wesley, points out the experiment in terms of observing pedophilia and children's response. I won't even go too far in that because I get upset, but he has the research on the government and the system studying that, you know, the first act of pedophilia against children and their response. Oh man, we could go
Yes.
on and on and on.
Yes,
On.
ma'am.
But Anthony, don't
Yes.
get me set up in here.
No, we thank you for those examples.
Thank you,
Those
brother.
were, you
Process.
know, yes, ma'am. That was enough for our people to
Correct.
go and do enough research to figure things out on their own, and the research and the history is definitely there. I would actually like to go into a very recent topic. Our sister, Breonna Taylor, is, the officers that were involved in her case, they have not been charged with the crime, and that is the decision on the verdict to the decision. Why do you think that, police officers and law enforcement get away with these heinous acts? And just to give people some solace and some solutions, please tell people what we should do to get away from this type of corrupt system.
I'll start with the latter. Separate.
Mhm.
It starts first, as Minister Ava reminds us, who is a point person for that. But again, this is not, as she tells us, an Ava Muhammad initiative. It is incumbent on all of us to drive home what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has given us for our salvation.
Mhm.
Whether we're going to live or we're going to die.
That's right.
And whether we agree with the Muslims in the Nation of Islam. Whether we like or love or hate Minister Farrakhan, there's no gray area where this man is concerned. Whether we believe what he's telling us the truth or we don't, we are, it's like gravity. It's like the law of the universe and nature. It's God's law. We are in God's law. So we must separate. There's going to be another Breonna Taylor, unfortunately. There's not enough money that they can throw at our families to make it go away. There are not enough dates and times and actions that we can have in protest. And I understand those, and those have their place, and people are outraged. So they fall into the street. And if some didn't fall into the street, they've told me they would kill somebody. They had to
Yes,
go.
ma'am.
So
Yes, ma'am.
that's the answer to that. The other part of it, in terms of why, it is because we refuse to accept the right guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I know it doesn't necessarily sound like that's the blanket answer for people. Some people can immediately dismiss it and close their ears to it, but I just can't say it any other way. I
Yes,
can't
ma'am.
say you're saved in that regard and not tell you how I've been saved. And when I don't go outside of the box of his instructions, then I'm okay. When I go outside the box, then I get hit in the head with a brick, as they say. So, brother, we let them get away.
Yes, ma'am.
How, if I may expound, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
How on earth could a young white male, after Dylan Roof, after Dylan Roof murders our brothers and sisters in Mother Emanuel in South Carolina, and get taken to have a burger? How could all of this occur? And you have a young white boy or male, be driven to Kentucky by his mother with arms in the car, according to the reports that have come out, shoot and kill two people, injure a third, move past police and others in law enforcement, be driven back home. How could you have white males, dubbed militia, in fatigues with guns paroling the streets in advance of the Breonna Taylor ruling? Before that came out, when they started locking that city down, I had no hope in it, but I already know. I said, oh, it's a wrap. They're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But not only did they not do anything in terms of accountability, they actually dug a knife and poured salt into the wound of not only her family, but the community at large that's grieving.
Yes,
Why?
ma'am.
Black women's lives have no value in America, much less Black people. So we let them do it. We let them do it by disrespect of one another, by failing to feel the pain, and you can always split up the Black community. So I'm
Yes,
gonna end,
ma'am.
I'm gonna end there. This is not a dissertation, but yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, dear sister.
Well,
I would actually like to ask you about um, a little bit behind the purpose and the goal and the content within your book, Pumps on the Ground, Trench Work and Analysis, Police and Street Violence. There it goes right there, people.
I
Please give them a quick, synopsis on what they may find in the book and their purpose for purchasing the book if they so choose to.
All right, thank you. Well, number one, it will support me in my work in
Mhm.
terms of media, multimedia, which
Right.
helps me to complement in my view and my goal, the work that I do with the final call. But the book actually is 3 years in the making from the time I actually started writing it, but it's been a long time coming. And what they'll find in it is actually a testimony. It is my testimony to the impact of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, on my life. How he
Mm.
has actually given me a voice. He helped me to find my voice. He's helping me to hone my voice. And this is taking place through the work of his editors. Now, Brother Nabal, formerly Brother Richard, who I started writing under. You've had Brother James G. Muhammad. He was the editor that I started writing under with Brother Richard. Then Brother
Mm,
Abdul Arif Muhammad, and the first and youngest female editor, Sister Dora Muhammad. And
mm,
so all of them, all of us standing on the shoulders of the great Brother Abdul Wali Muhammad, and of course our senior editor, Brother Askia Muhammad, our chairman of the board, Brother Abdullah Muhammad. Oh wow, and we have the great general manager, Brother Abdul Rasul. It talks about
mm,
how I found the confidence and I gained the ability and am gaining because I'm a student, right?
mhm,
To be able to go into the trenches and be with our people and talk to our people and find out how what we see in police violence and everything else we suffer is impacting us. What
mhm,
needs to be done? What can be done? But what is the truth? Because I had gotten upset so often we would get the news and I'd be reporting from the desk and I'd be looking at the news and I'm saying, this doesn't sound right
mm.
because people are calling me saying something else. And so I started getting asked to go to certain places. Um, Among those, Brother Cephas' Uncle Bobby X. Johnson, the uncle of Oscar Grant III, his wife, Sister Beatrice X, Miss Wanda Johnson, Oscar's mother, embraced me
Mm,
tremendously, and activist Linda J here, many people. And so what has happened is you will find interviews with them in the book. You'll find an interview with my husband who talks, it shocked me, with Brother Abdul Qiyam, formerly Brother Jesse Muhammad, about being the husband of a wife who is in the public eye, so to speak.
yes,
Um,
ma'am.
but the book is it's my testimony and to the minister, and I began to want to do that. Although people had been asking me, Brother Anthony, I was
Mm,
rejecting it because I felt that it wasn't about me speaking. What is Minister Farrakhan saying? That's going to save your life. But I
definitely.
realized through the encouragement of Brother Akbar, Minister Akbar, that with the media platforms in terms of radio and internet that I have, that I could do more to help spread the work of the final call and the voice of the minister. So it's gut wrenching stories. It's painful, but if I may add one more thing, for instance, Linda J, whose daughter Brittany was murdered here. Brother
Mm,
Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad, formerly Brother Tony, and the nation here. We had a walk and a rally with her, and her when the article came out, she called me in tears, letting me know that her family had been estranged from each other for years, just a few years. They had lost touch. Her nephew at Mosque Mariam saw the story and their sister, her sister, Sister Janice Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with her, they were able to reconnect. And a couple of years later, Sister Janice succumbed to cancer. But the family
mm,
had that time. That's the impact of the publisher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And she said, Student Minister Ishmael and the minister's children, the nation treated her and her family so well. They got that all
mm,
because we covered this story. And there's more, like the police rape of Black women and girls in Oklahoma. I was called and asked, would you please come out, and did. And so those things are there. And the forward is by Minister Ava. So
mm.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you for that. We do. I thank you for touching on that experience and
Brother.
the points on your book. So, anybody who is we have a multitude of people in our community looking to put their boots on the ground, or we could say put our pumps on the ground to be able to
Mhm.
make a change in the communities that our people live in. So I thank you, and on behalf of NMV News, I thank you for being that light in that area of the work. So
Praise
uh,
be to Allah.
yes,
And then
ma'am.
the
And
article rated sisters.com, pardon me.
well, go ahead and repeat that, sis.
And they may order it at liberatedsisters.com.
Awesome, awesome. To sort of wrap up this discussion, I would like for you, through your experiences and your current actions with the Final Call newspaper. What could you tell people who do not know anything about it? What is the mission and goal in our community for the Final Call newspaper?
I love the Final Call. I love to talk about it. It is dedicated to the resurrection of the Black man and woman in America. And
Mhm.
now we know that the minister speaks for the whole. So, as the publisher of the Final Call, it's dedicated to the resurrection of humanity. His message is universal, and so you will find truth in the Final Call newspaper. And you will find that we chase that truth as we are taught by the publisher to wherever it may lead. And sometimes it condemns those of us in our own community, right? But
Mhm.
right now, we have no more time for play. And so, across the board, if we've ever been catching it, we're catching it now. So, in the Final Call newspaper, you'll see the national section, which is dealing with, of course, police violence. It's dealing with a lot of what's happening with COVID, of course, but with education, you will see how activists within and Muslim activists in the nation and those without are working to make our communities a safe and decent place to live on all levels. You have articles from youth. You have, of course, the great brother minister Jabril Muhammad and Mother Tynetta Muhammad, as well as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan Center Story are mainstays. And so we have around the cities, we have international news. There's just we have prison ministry. I mean, subscribe to Final Call Digital and do yourself and everyone a favor. This is news you can use. You can fact check what's happening
Mhm.
in your local and mainstream news with what we get in the Final Call, because we get voices of those that are sometimes overlooked and sometimes are the key voices in the middle of the struggle.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, but so you all have heard it from the Final Call national correspondent of why you should get this newspaper and the purpose of this newspaper. As it is a Black-owned newspaper, please get your hands on it digitally today at www.finalcalldigital.com. Please go get Sister Charlene's book, Pumps on the Ground: Trench Work and Analysis for Police and Street Violence. And please, subscribe to her, follow her podcast, Liberated Sisters. Visit liberatedSisters.com. Uh,
Oh,
Sister Charlene,
May I add
hmm?
one thing? May I add one
Go
thing?
ahead. Yes,
Oh, thank
ma'am.
you so much. Yes, and I'm building my little social media networks. Army
Yes,
of
ma'am.
one, well, two, Allah backing me. But if you could subscribe to Liberated Sisters on YouTube, and also I have to say, Brother Anthony, when I go out and cover these stories, or I sit at home and write about the stories, I take the spirit of the FOI with me. Of course,
Mm,
in addition to praying to Allah and asking what would the minister do, WWJD, what would Jesus do for real? You know,
mhm.
May Allah be pleased with Brother Roy, our brother who was recently died of injuries in the hit and run in Flint, Michigan. And to all of the FOI, thank you so much under
Yes,
the
ma'am.
helm of Student Supreme Captain Mustafa Muhammad for taking this paper and risking your lives and giving this word to our people. You are so it makes such a difference. They tell me, and when you're not out, they miss you. So we love you, FOI. Thank you for
Yes,
carrying this
ma'am.
paper.
Yes, ma'am. On behalf
Yeah.
for me and behalf of any FOI who feels endearing in spirit within what you just said, we would like to thank you for backing your love with support in this Final Call newspaper. So, well, I would like to thank you for joining us today on this discussion. Thank you for taking time out, and on behalf of NMV News, we would like to wish your success through all your journeys and your efforts to become who you would like to be.
Alhamdulillah. Likewise, brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank
I
you.
still
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you all for tuning in to NMV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Anthony Muhammad with NNVnews.com.